Welcome back to my channel. Here's a little follow-on video from my last one about Neville Goddard's law of assumption. If you haven't seen that, you want to check that out first, do so. That explains what I'm talking about here. It's an interesting concept, the law of assumption. All of Neville's concepts are interesting. There's more than that, and I'll do videos on the others as well because they are very interesting. They're a great filter to try on. All these things are merely filters to perceive reality through. You know, that's all we know is our filters. We only know that. That's all we know. We don't know the base reality. We just filter the signals according to the filter of our beliefs and our wishes and our hopes and our dreams and the various other stuff we've got bouncing around inside our noggins that we didn't even put there ourselves. That was done by the parents and then the conditions of life. But sometimes it's useful, especially for a creative person, to try on different filters, to take different points of view, to perceive things from different angles. And Neville Goddard's filters are particularly powerful and can cause tremendous change in the circumstances of one's life. Even if you don't buy into his metaphysics. Even if you don't buy into his metaphysics, by applying what he says, you'll see results. And they're good ones. The law of assumption, as I said in the previous video, it's assuming the state of the wish fulfilled. It's different to the law of attraction in that, as I said in the previous video, it actually works. And in a very practical way too. It works depending on how you come to it. It works through the prism of neuroscience. It works through the prism of metaphysics, if that's your fancy. You know, it works through the various. For any kind of way you approach life, these filters do seem to have a practicality to them. And I'm very lucky. I know an awful lot of creative people, some of the most creative people in the world, in fact. Now, I'm not going to drop names. I'm not that guy. But if you want to prove what I say, just stick my name in the IMDb and that'll give you a couple of them. I've worked with these people. I've lived with these people. I've been around these people. And all of them have one thing in common. None of them have ever said, when I've spoken to them about success, how one has achieved the levels that they've achieved, and I'm talking global levels, by the way, how they've done it, how they've achieved it, not one of them has ever said to me, I did a 3-day NLP course and it changed my life. I mean, it really did. It was in London. There was 9,000 of us in the room and now I'm a qualified hypnotherapist. And not one of them. None of them have ever said, well, I learnt this thing where you tap your face like this. If you tap your face like that while you're rolling your eyes and you sing happy birthday, you can change anything in this life. I mean, that's amazing. That's how I got my £1 million house. Not one of them has ever come up with anything like that. But the one thing they all have in common is, by the way, I'm clearly taking the piss. If that makes you happy, I'm not having a go at you. If that floats your boat, if that gets you there, then do it. Honestly. And forgive me, I can't help it if I find it ridiculous. But if it works for you, fill your boots. Honestly. It's a filter. Just a silly one. I'm sorry. So, but the one thing they've all got in common is this. They all, whether or not they've read Neville, and they probably haven't, but they've all naturally, either by luck of genes, luck of parenting, luck of the draw, they all practice the law of assumption. They all assume success and they move forward. A friend of mine, one of the most successful comedians in the country, you would have heard of him. I'm only not saying his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but the one thing he said to me was, the only superpower I've got is that I've always known what to do next. And that was it. I've always known what to do next. It's assumption. They all assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. They may not put it in those terms. They may not even think of it like that, but they assume, you know, they were successful before they were successful. They went there first in their attitude. Because what does the most success... Let's use comedy as an example. What does the most successful comedian in the world do? He gets up and he writes jokes. He writes comedy. But he does it as a job, not like when he feels like it, when the weather's right. No, he sits at his desk and he does it. Then he takes that comedy out there into the world and he shows people. and he receives feedback from the world. He goes home, he creates. And if he's in the position of the wish fulfilled, he keeps going, and the synchronicities line up to get the person to where he or she, to get them to where they want to be. But they've still got to write the comedy. They've still got to create the offering. You know? But the law of assumption gives you that. By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the ideas come to you. If you assume panic, if you assume the attitude of panic, of it's never going to happen, of I am screwed, of this is my fate, of I was born into this situation and I'll never get out of it, and we've all done that. I'm not coming to you from the point as the enlightened guru here, giving you all the answers. I'm as messed up as you, mate. Do you know, in fact, more so with the old skits. But believe me, however noisy your head is, turn that up to 11 and add another 9. And that's what I have to cope with. But when you apply the law of assumption as a filter, as I say, then the knockbacks don't affect you. Every person who's ever manifested a magnificent life has had more failures than they've had successes. More things have gone wrong than have gone right. But their filters are so tuned that they focus on the wins and they go with them, and the negatives just fall off of them. You know, they hurt, but they don't carry it into the next day. Because a knockback's always painful, but it doesn't have to hurt forever. It just has to hurt in that moment and then let it move through and move forward. And again, the law of assumption gives you the ability to do that. To live your life as if you're already what you want to be it before you see it. In other words, to be the thing. Not faking it, to be the thing. Bruce Lee was the greatest martial artist that ever lived way before he stood in front of his first Wing Chun dummy and started working out on it. And he got to where he wanted to be. But he was there already here. Don't take my word for it, read his stuff. If you're enjoying this series of videos, why not hit subscribe? Subscribe to the channel. There'll be stuff coming a lot now on this sort of thing. And give this video a like as well. It helps me out with the algorithms. And give the law of assumption a try. You've got nothing to lose. Try it on as a filter. There's something that you want, something you want to acquire, something you want to experience. Assume the sensation of the wish already fulfilled and then get on with your day and just see what happens. Give it a good go. Give it a week. You have literally nothing to lose. Start with something small. Start with something small and see what happens. You can create results. For all this, I'm not dashing off the magic. For all what I've just said, you can get results that feel like actual magic. Subjectively, they feel like magic. Objectively, to other people, it just looks like you're living your life and you've had good luck. But subjectively, it does feel like magic that I assumed this was going to happen and then it did. It's a wonderful feeling. And when pursued to its ultimate end, it can lead you into the non-dual understanding, which is where we all want to end up. Because then there's no more questions. It's just this. Just this. I've had some spectacular results with it. I told a story in the last video, but there's been others. I always assumed I'd be on television one day, and I was. Check it out on the IMDb, not making it up. And I've had wonderful results with it. There were places that I wanted to visit that I would never have got there, through living a normal life, but I assumed I was there already, and then the circumstances seemed to line up and I ended up there. It felt like magic to me. Like New York. I always wanted to see New York. I wanted to go to Tannen's. As a boy magician, I practiced sleight of hand as a hobby and perform it in my shows. And as a boy magician, like when I'm 14, I wanted to see Tannen's in New York. You would open up these magic books that you get at the time. This is back in the day. You had to buy the books, the sort of Paul Harris ones, that era of conjuring, and there'd be adverts in the back for Tannen's Magic Shop. I wanted to see it so badly, and I would fantasize. I would imagine that I was there. I'd see myself walking through the door. A fantasy with no attachment to the outcome. That's another secret. I'll tell you about that in another video. No attachment to the outcome, just assuming that one day I'd see it, but not quite sure how that would ever happen, but just assuming that I would. And then I'm working on a cruise ship. It sails into New York. Off I get, and it turns out that Tannen's is 5 minutes away. I went for a stroll, found Tannen's, went in exactly as I imagined it. The atmosphere and everything. A really beautiful afternoon. I never went to Tannen's. Circumstances lined up so that I got delivered to Tannen's. I got delivered to that magic shop. Now, subjectively, that felt like magic. Subjectively, that felt like I'd imagined a thing and it came true 100%. Objectively, to others watching, it looked like I just lived my life, got some shows. One of them happened to be in New York City. But subjectively, from the point of view from which I was perceiving reality, from which I do perceive reality, from back here, that felt like magic. That felt like the world bending to me. I've had lots of those experiences. People that I've wanted to meet. People that I've wanted to meet that I would never get to meet in the normal course of life. I've met them all. And apparently by not doing much. And again, objectively, it looks like I was living my life and I knew someone who knew someone and a thing worked out. But subjectively, from here, the universe bent to my will and I met people that I shouldn't have met. I met performers that were literally impossible to meet because they just didn't mix. And I got to have dinner with them. I got to socialise with them. Got to know them. Teachers as well. That's the main one. The wonderful teachers that I've met. I'm going to do some videos on them as well, some of the things that they've taught me. But all of that, again, it was you'd read their book or you'd see them do something or hear about something and, imagine meeting them, and then I did. And subjectively, it felt like magic. The universe bent to my will. The law of assumption, my friends. If you're enjoying these videos, hit subscribe, hit like, and I'll see you on the next one.